Welcome back to the Soffer Longevity Podcast, where we explore the science, strategy, and real-world practice of living longer, healthier, and better. This week's episode is going to be pretty special. We're bringing what we like to call our Doctor's Lounge style of discussion, the kind of candid and thoughtful, sometimes spirited conversation physicians have when they're reviewing the latest trends and claims and therapies and controversies in health and longevity. Today we'll be talking about the raging trend of creatine supplementation, why it has moved far beyond the bodybuilding world, what the evidence suggests, who may benefit, and where the hype may be getting ahead of the science. We'll also take a closer look at some of the biggest claims from Bryan Johnson's Don't Die movement, separating myths from facts, intriguing ideas from overstatements, and potentially useful takeaways from parts that may not be ready for prime time. As always, our goal is not to chase trends blindly, but to ask the better question: what does the evidence suggest? What makes clinical sense? And how should real patients think about these ideas with their own physicians? Before we begin, an important disclaimer. The content of this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended to provide medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, recommendations, or to replace care from your personal physician or qualified healthcare professional. The opinions expressed in this episode are insights and clinical perspectives of experienced doctors discussing emerging topics in health and longevity. They should not be interpreted as an individualized medical guidance. Before starting, stopping, or changing any medication, supplementation, exercise program, diet, or medical treatment plan, consult your physician or healthcare provider who understands your personal medical history, risk factors, medications, and goals. Soffer Longevity does accept patients both in person in South Florida and online, where appropriate. To learn more about our longevity evaluation, membership options, and clinical services, please visit the Soffer Longevity website. With that said, let's pull up a chair in the doctor's lounge and get into it with my esteemed colleague, Dr. McLeod, who is a board-certified family practice and functional medicine specialist, and I am lucky to say my personal physician and friend, Dr. Soffer McLeod. So we got a couple of topics we're going to go through today, specifically the sort of internet is abuzz, and all of our patients are coming to us recently talking more and more about creatine. And then we're going to talk about Bryan Johnson, a lot of the things he's bringing to bear, the Don't Die guy. That is very interesting and controversial. We're going to talk about some myths and facts. So, but let's run right into the creatine thing, because I know that's something that, you know, you have had a lot of experience. I've had a ton of experience through the years, but now it's becoming even more interesting. So tell me your thoughts.
Well, I think because it's been so well studied, it's probably the most studied supplement that there is. So they've been testing it with whole different groups of people. So it's not just for athletes. You know, they're talking about older adults and actually patients with depression. So it's been quite a few studies. Like I can't tell you how many I read. And there's quite a few.
Of late. You know, there was a lot of stuff, like I can tell you, I was on creatine when I wanted to bench press above a certain amount. That number's 320 pounds for my young self that used to be proud of it. Now I am not, can't do it. But in those days of a 20-year-old, I wanted to bench press a lot, and I could get to like 300, and then I could not get above it. I took creatine in a supplemental powder form for a couple of weeks, kind of loaded, and then and lo and behold, like I got a little puffier, and I was able to do it. And then as soon as I stopped, couldn't do it anymore. But I was like, yay, I achieved my little goal.
And then just stopped.
And I think I had some gain, so maybe I could do at 300, maybe one or two more reps longer term. But certainly the advanced gain did go away. So did some of the, you know, I call it puffiness, but you know, the muscularity that was there at the time seemed to be a little bit advanced. But I felt like I was going to have to be on it for life. So I stopped it in my 20s, and then I haven't taken it since until you know, you as my longevity doc, as well as inspiration, I started to relook at it, and now I'm kind of back on. But tell me your personal experience on it as a over 20-year-old.
Over 20, yes. So I take it Actually, it's in combination with my methylene blue, so I haven't been taking it separately, but I am going to start going up to higher amounts because of just all the stuff that I was reading.
Well, so talk about what amounts did you start taking?
It's only 2 milligrams, 2 grams a day.
So you're very, very conservative.
Very conservative, yeah.
I've heard the numbers. So what I've read, the physiologic data, the 18. So let's talk maybe about what creatine. Let me let you give like kind of a definition of what you think creatine is, and as a supplement, what it may or may not do.
Okay, so it's a protein. It helps you kind of convert your in your mitochondria to ATP. So the phosphocreatine helps you make more ATP. So
adenosine triphosphate. So kind of the burning engine of the molecular part of our body.
Yes.
So it's like kind of an energy store, a fuel.
And it gets it's the muscles that usually take it up. So the muscles take it up. The brain can also take it up.
I heard, since we're at the doctor's lounge, I heard that to get to the neurologic capacity of taking it up, you have to have sort of a full stores of your muscles, and then it's supposed to kind of seep into or potentially have CNS or nervous system.
Yeah, because of the blood-brain barrier. So that's the reason why you need higher levels so that it can start to cross over.
So do you think at your 2 milligram? No,
I don't think so. That's why I decided that we need to go a little higher. So they saw that you would actually start to have that cognitive benefits above 5 grams a day.
And I heard the cognitive benefits included to some degree memory. It included to some degree, even things like balance and, things that you would see in older people starting to deteriorate. Normally.
So like with sarcopenia or, as you age, your muscles are not, as they were like when you were in your 20s. So they did a couple of tests, like your get up and go tests, where you're trying to see how fast they can get up and, walk 15 feet and come back. So that did improve with taking creatine.
Did you do that challenge, by the way? We're going to talk about the challenge?
I haven't done the challenge yet.
We'll talk about that in a minute. There's these get up and go challenges at Bryan Johnson, which we're going to get to in a minute. But and for those who don't know, sarcopenia, so is this loss of muscle strength. The sarcomere is considered the sort of the muscle unit of the tissue, and sarcopenia, anything with an enia is like, osteopenia means
you're losing
low bone, sarcopenia means you're losing muscle.
Yes.
So it does seem to help in, gaining
older adults,
in older adults, which is what I am now. Is I just crossed that 60 barrier. It all becomes very real now. I also find that because of the stuff we've talked about in the past, which is there is a absorption change that happens probably in our microbiome, in our gut, that allows us to, when we're younger, really absorb things more efficiently, and as we get older, not as efficiently. Sort of hence the 5 o'clock deli dinner for a lot of older people is an adaptation for eating a little bit earlier because you don't absorb as well, and maybe you sleep better if you eat earlier, and blah, blah, blah. The point being in this is that it's very possible that while creatinine was replete, that I was getting it through my general diet when I was younger and absorbing it, it doesn't seem like I'm absorbing it as well now, because after adding, in my case, I'm adding 3 to 5 milligrams. So probably 5 milligrams, 5 grams.
It's like we're going really small now.
2 little pills that I have, chiclets. No. So I am actually taking the pill form, and it's monohydrate. You can't really take it any other way. None of those other ways are sort of studied. There are all sorts of different, the most studied is the creatine monohydrate, probably most studied in the powder form, but they make it in little gel capsules. So I take that. I'm taking about 5 milligrams. I started at 3 because I wanted to make sure I didn't have any GI, because there can be some GI upset that you can always have a reaction to anything. So I started with a 3, I went to 5. Then I did a loading phase, because there's a lot of data to suggest you could load at as high as 20 milligrams. I didn't go quite that high, but you can load for a few days, saturate your system, and then you go back to that 3 to 5, depending on your size. I'm going to be a 5 guy.
They also said that if you just do like 5 grams a day, you can do that, and you don't need the loading dose, but you just need to go
Yes.
for longer periods.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
I
that's
100%.
so either way.
I 100% agree with that. I kind of wanted the loading dose because I felt like I was having, as you know, a pickleball nut, and I hit the weights at least 3-4 times a week as part of my, daily routines. So I felt like my recovery was better with the loaded creatine for the next day. You got to take things for a reason. It's really hard. There are some things we're doing in longevity that will only be told long term, whether it's metformin, which has probably got the foremost data on, rapamycin, which is coming up with all sorts of interesting data. There are things that we do for, I want to, sort of extend my life. But there are other things that we take that are very demonstrable that you
Right
have
now,
shown me that we can get real blood tests for, or we have real symptoms of. And I don't know that there's a 60-year-old that's exercising regularly, even minorly, and isn't a little bit sore, doesn't know exactly how their recovery period can be optimized, or their exercise impacts their sleep habits. So the timing of their sleep habits can be different. I actually heard a very interesting thing. I had I don't know if he's listening or not, but I had one of my wife's friends who's her trainer has a boyfriend who's an NBA referee.
Okay.
And he was telling me about his routine with sauna. And immediately after the sauna, cold plunge.
Okay.
So sauna to cold plunge, sauna to cold plunge. This means like put those two together, you have room temperature. So
Yes, exactly. So
but he is
100%.
He's a very active job, an active person. Obviously, pounding, and it's for his job, right? So he absolutely needs it. It's unbelievable for him that combination. That requires both. And listen, we've been as doctors always saying, ice and heat. We're not really sure. We know the combination works better in a lot of orthopedic injuries. But it comes down to individual recovery.
Yes.
And it's a very individual thing. And one of the things that I have been saying that everyone needs a longevity style or functional medicine style physician in their life is it individualizes because everybody eats a little different. They sleep a little different. When they eat different, their microbiome treats a little different. When they sleep different, they have different forms of their REM or deep sleep or whatever. It's very complicated.
Yes.
And so a functional medicine specialist like yourself can gather all that data, put it in one of our great software systems now to keep it all straight and track it.
Yes.
And that's what you have to do, track. How have you been feeling with the creatine so far in terms of your subjective or objective tracking?
Yeah, it's pretty much subjective at this point. So it's I walk a lot. And the days that you actually notice a difference on the days that you do take it and the days that you don't take it. So like if I've forgotten or, get busy or whatever and just, haven't taken it, you notice that you get a little more, you get tired like sooner.
So you feel like a little
just
less
a little,
energy.
And
if I placebo controlled this, right, like we would like to do if I gave you like a sugar pill instead or a inert sugar pill, stevia pill,
and see,
you think you would know the difference?
I think I would know the yeah. Well,
I believe you.
I know the difference. Like even like if I take my vitamins, I don't take my vitamins. You do feel the little.
Yeah, you've convinced me on
tuned.
that. You got me on a multivitamin, specific one that was specifically made towards my but the one that you suggested that was unique to my blood markers.
Yes.
And I feel
good.
Feel good. I was feeling good before, but I feel gooder.
Okay. There we go. We'll take that.
So put it this way, you definitely don't feel worse. And maybe there is a bit of a placebo effect. But the studies, and again, we're at the doctor's lounge. We're not at Starbucks.
Yes.
In the doctor's lounge, we would say that the studies have been pretty convincing that a multivitamin a day caused increased longevity over time. Now, we talk about longevity. I want everyone to always remember, because we'll segue into this in a few minutes with the Bryan Johnson sort of don't die perspective, this eternity thing. It's not what we're talking about. But the idea is that we have markers and we adjust those markers so something objective has changed, and that we also control our own subjective inner thoughts. let me give you a great example. When I took the GLP-1s, which everyone probably knows about. I wrote a book about it, Prescription Strength, available on Amazon still. but I wrote this book on my experience with the GLP-1s.
Yeah.
I, every day on the board that's behind you, had I put all my sleep, my general feeling, my exercise capacity, and I graded all 0 to 10. So I said, okay, I'm starting today because it was the first injection I'd ever taken. It was an injection, so it scared me a little bit, right? So it was early on. I was one of the first people to get it. And I wrote all of them down, and then I made a little graph. And that sounds really nerdy. It wasn't. It was so easy. And then I saw week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 6, and I tracked it with my weight loss. All of it on a board every day or 5 days a week when I was in the office. And it really helped me to understand what dose I needed, what it was doing for me. So it wasn't just, one of the things that people get into is they end up taking supplements, and before you know it, you're taking one for this. You're on 20 supplements. I don't know how much gelatin or whatever it is that those capsules are putting in your body, a la Bryan Johnson that we'll talk about. And you have to think at some point there's a bit of a diminishing return, right?
Well, that's the whole point of tracking. I mean, just like you did. I mean, it's if you're not tracking, then you don't know. So yeah, you can get into that where you are taking 20 supplements a day and you're not really sure why or what's doing. Is this really helping? It's not really helping. Yeah.
Well, I see how you put in your office, the big TV, and you can show the charts of people as they're tracking along is one of the things to do, or on the apps that we have. But objective evidence. So evidence is king, data is king, and that's what we're kind of doing. So let's go back to your creatinine experience. So you're taking 2 milligrams. You're going to up that now.
I'm going to up that. I'm actually going to go to 10 grams a day, and
Dr.
see.
McLeod, is there some hope that you have out of this, that you're like, I really want to...
I'm going to get really smart.
Smarter. Well, it's funny. There's that brain health app that is super cool.
That Brain HQ.
Brain HQ that has been also evidence-based, shown to be both a good barometer of your brain age.
Yes.
It's free online.
It's free. When you want to go into like where you're doing it for longer periods of time, let's say like you want to do a half hour, then that's when you go into that paid subscription.
Of course.
But the first, like if you want to do just play your game, it's like 10 minutes long, and that's for free.
Right. So something like on a brain age, you can actually say, okay, this is the parameters I did on brain age. They have little games. Like I enjoyed playing the little games in it. And so you could just see how that is on creatinine
and see at the higher dose.
At the higher dose. Or no dose if you forget it, because it's one of those things you do really have to take quite a bit. I think it comes out of your system not necessarily one day, but certainly, and if you went on vacation, didn't take it for a week, you're probably back to 0.
That's because it's using it every day. It's getting used.
Yeah. Actually, I heard something really interesting too, that your creatinine level on your blood test can actually show
it goes up,
which a lot of people get concerned. Well, does that hurting my kidneys?
Yeah, no, the studies have showed no.
Doesn't.
And then you can check a different marker if that becomes a concern. Then you can check a different marker.
It's a fictitious increase and for renal or for kidney problems.
Yes.
And once you go off of it for a period of time, it goes back to normal. So there really hasn't been, the most important thing about creatine, no matter what we talk about more, because I do want to hit a couple more topics that are interesting, like cancer but is the safety profile. So the safety profile is absolutely clean. Like it's very rare to get this clean. Of a safety profile. It's on the level of a multivitamin.
It looks like the longest study they did was for 48 months and at 40 grams a day.
Right.
So, and they had no issues.
No issues. So my feeling is that almost everything that we do is based on a risk-benefit analysis. And that's why my favorite course, a lot of doctors' favorite courses, was statistics, medical statistics in particular, but just maybe not you.
Not me.
I don't know. Women didn't like it.
Too many numbers.
I loved it. I loved it. And I thought it helped me reason everything that I do.
Yeah.
And this idea of risk
And benefit.
becomes really, really clear. So, okay. So you're going to do a thing that is as completely safe as we can humanly understand as physicians right now, with the benefits that can be substantive. So if you look at things like we've already covered, which is like sort of a recovery, maybe some athletic performance, which I 100% personally verified, it definitely worked as a younger person. As an older person, you start thinking about, cognitive maintenance, right? You want your brain to stay where it is.
Yes.
You want your memory to stay where it is. I played pickleball this morning with people half my age, and I don't know what it is about pickleball because you get very competitive. No one can remember the score that well. So I'm the first guy typically, what's the score? And they're like, oh, a gray-haired guy, Then I get pissed.
And
then I
you're
start
like,
remembering, and they can't remember it, So it's not exactly, that's maybe not the objective place to do it, but there are on the brain HQ and different memory tests that we have that can sort of objectify your memory, so cognition. I've heard bone
strength.
bone and muscle strength.
Yes.
So maybe sometimes the muscle strength can help the bone strength. So that, plus knowing your vitamin D and optimizing that. Then we have, I heard immune-related issues, which was, we know immune is directly related to cancer. Your immune system is built to stop viruses and cancers.
Yes.
So if you can augment it, and creatinine seems to work, and there are some real reasons that, not for the doctor's lounge, more for the, our grand rounds, when we could talk about as to why, but the studies were pretty interesting. They're more animal-based than they are human-based right now, and they're more theoretical on the human side than actually, large randomized clinical trials. But there's nothing to suggest that it increases cancer. So if you're trying to stave it off, having your muscles and your bones and your immune system as plump as possible, I think we'd all want.
Exactly. There was also another interesting study with females with depression, and they gave them creatine, and along with an SSRI or SS, one of the antidepressants that they were taking, and they actually did better with the creatine on board. So also that's a very interesting.
Yeah, and I don't think it's related to sleep, because the sleep data wasn't so clear. Magnesium is much better on the sleep data, but the creatine, I really looked because I was really trying to optimize my sleep, which I'm almost there. I had an interesting thing last night. So, you were one of the people that told me about the importance about getting sleep at the right time, making sure you have the right temperature.
Yes.
And, of course, the lighting and all that sort of stuff. I have a sleep bed. I think it's probably one of the most important things that I bought, the Sleep Number bed, the cooling mattress or heating mattress, because my wife and I have wanted a little bit different. So I was really tired last night. I was watching the NBA finals and, international. I didn't turn it on. And I've been very consistent with it, turning it to cooling, and then it, it has a timer in it. I didn't turn it on, period. My thermoregulatory system had changed, and I woke up and I didn't know why I was up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I hadn't done that. And as soon as I turned the Sleep Number bed back to on, I went right to sleep, and all was good. Now, I don't know. I don't think it's a dependency necessarily, because I have traveled a couple of times without it, but certainly there's an impact. There's an impact there. But while I was up, I read about creatine, because I started with
That's a good
creatine.
time. Yeah.
There's apparently no known effect on sleep for creatine, so we can rule that one. So we've got immunoprotection, which includes the potential of potentially in the future of understanding better. Hopefully it can help us with the immune-related cancer prevention. Certainly clear muscle, bone, probably depression,
Cognitive
improvement. So those are pretty good things from a very inexpensive, what is it, GNC kind of generic thing. You get one of those good manufacturing practices stickers on it where at least it comes from a reputable place.
And that's, it's easy enough to add to your regimen.
Except a lot of people are, well, am I on it? Because nobody likes the idea of being on something for life. How do you address that thought?
Well, it's like, how, like, do you want to feel good? That's the thing, is you have something, it's making you feel good. It's, you know, why not? I mean, like, you drink water and you eat good food. You have to do that every day.
Well, also, like, if you're going to do resistance training, for instance, you know, my mother's 85 years old and she is doing a lot of weightlifting. She has an ability to do flat bench curls, like very significant weights.
Does she take creatine?
Well, I don't know if she's allowed me to tell her specific things, but suffice it to say that if you're doing resistance training, it is very clear in young people, based on all of the athletic data, that it improves.
Oh, they found it in older adults too. Yeah.
So now in older adults who aren't necessarily trying to get, you know, extreme athletic performance, it's for older adults, it's more about recovery, right? Because I don't think most of us aren't going to be like, okay, great, I benched 320. You know, we just want to be able to get through our workout and not be sore the next, or as sore the next day. Sometimes being sore is okay, but being as sore, it's the recovery that is the big issue, I think, because if you don't have adequate recovery, you lose interest in the exercise. So the better you recover, the more likely you are to keep it. And we know this helps in an older person's recovery. So men 50, 60, women 50, 60, 70, 80, maybe 90, maybe more. You know, there doesn't seem to be a downside to this. I think it always is an idea to potentially have washout periods. It's different than a washout period, a period of, say, testosterone, where, you know, we both have patients in common that if they have to go off testosterone for whatever reason, go into depression, into something that's like their libido's gone, their strength is gone. They it's not good, not to mention the testicular and the biofeedback loops and all that sort of stuff. Because the body is very, very intelligent. And whenever it knows you're on, you know, this ATP accelerator, this creatine, so maybe it's producing. But I don't remember when I was younger crashing. I haven't heard about people crashing off of it. So, and there isn't a side effect profile around it. So I think it's one of those things that it is safe to maybe give yourself some washout periods periodically, which is what I have done. And I think that, you know, as a cardiologist, I think there's a lot of benefit in creatinine for so much. I cannot not recommend it. But I want to let everybody know that it has to be, in my opinion, with a functional medicine specialist wherever they are in the world. There has to be that sort of person that helps you oversee. You know,
to help you decide on your dose and, you know, how. It's
dose changes, combination with other medications. Maybe your creatinine goes up. It's just, and that's on an inert medication. Forget about the, you know, these new peptides or the older peptides or you know, the other things that are we're trying to do. It has to be with kind of someone that's got experience, and that's why functional medicine specialists like yourself is so important to have. And, you know, in addition to your general medical team, or be your they should be your general medical team. Okay, so you would basically, you know, at the end of the day, we rank everything, and this is going to go into our Soffer Evidence Index, which this would be probably at this point an A+,
I think so.
right? So it's an A, meaning there are enough studies to give it an A, and plus means social media is raving about it, or they're not raving about it. In this case, they're definitely raving about it. So it's one of our few A pluses as a supplement, and that's a great thing to have. So I think we've covered a lot on creatine. So, you know, of course, if people have questions, sometimes they can, you know, if they put them in the comments, we may be able to get to some of them periodically on future episodes. Or, of course, they can see you in the office. And there may be an online version that we'll do for people who are out of the state of Florida or out of our area. But for now, it is time to talk about Mr. Don't Die, Mr. Bryan Johnson. Tell me your thoughts.
So I think it's an interesting experiment. I think that's really what it comes down to, is just to see how if you control all factors as much as you can, can you really slow the pace of aging? And that's I think that's what he's doing. And he has his team of doctors. He monitors pretty much everything. And so far as like I've read, that he has slowed his pace of aging. So he's down to 0.5. So he ages half a year, like half his chronological age. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that as a biological. So you said something interesting. First of all, you said he's slowing his pace of aging. That isn't exactly what he's saying. He's saying don't die, which is don't age.
I don't think we're going to be able to don't die completely.
Right. And if you listen to him, I think he, that's a little more theater, as they say, than really what he's trying to do. I think he's a guy who made a bunch of money. He's like, I want to stay as healthy as possible, and I'm going to hire up the team. And
I think with his origin story was that he was, I think he was 42 and just tired, depressed, overweight, and I think that's kind of how he started his journey on to increase, like to improve his health.
So we can basically say it's not really don't die. What he really should be calling his situation is, age slower.
Yes.
So you can be not just elderly, you can be welderly, right? Those are probably the less sexy kind of things that he would probably use if he was to be as honest and maybe a little less exciting as a podcast or whatever. But in the end, like, he does have a variety of things that are interesting. Some of the things that I, think are good things that he does, because there's some good things and there's some things I'm just not down with, right? I don't think there's enough evidence for. But the things that there are evidence for is he's very routine about his going to sleep.
Very
likes to go sleep at the same time.
Yes.
Cool, dark room, no lights. Okay, get it. I think we've talked about that enough. That's I don't think he's taking anything to sleep, at least from a narcotic perspective. I think it's based on his very large group of supplements, which we'll talk about that in a minute. Obviously, then he wakes up and he does fasting. So he fasts. I think he's more. I'm on a 16/8, so I have an 8-hour feeding window. I think his is a bit shorter. I know he's very religious about not having eaten at least 3 or 4 hours.
It's 4 hours.
4 hours before he goes to sleep. So he's super religious about that.
And he monitors his heart rate so that he knows, if his heart rate has gone down enough so that it's time for sleep. So he tries to get his heart rate as low as possible. It's, they're talking like 40s.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And those are things that we can all agree are probably sensible, have shown a lot of data for. I believe he does take, creatine. I think that is a thing that, is very evidence-based. So far, he's kind of, he's got me. And I know he likes the dry sauna, which we've talked about. The Finnish study is, been going on for 20 plus years, multiple studies of the Finnish group. But certainly there seems to be a lot of data in that and increasing your, by sort of mimicking exercise a little bit, by increasing heart rate, lowering blood pressure, seems to be beneficial. We're not 100% sure if that's the mechanism, but a dry sauna at a high heat, like as high as 180 degrees, with about 20 minutes a day, about 4 days a week, has shown definitively to reduce stroke, heart attacks, neurodegenerative issues, and so forth. Great. So those are just, maybe the top few things. Then he measures all these biologic versus chronologic ages. And that's where it's get a little wonky, right? Because
he's measured even to the point where he can, between his ears, one ear apparently is aging faster than the other ear. So he's broken it down into multiple systems.
Right. Which is where I think he starts to lose me. I love the idea of your biologic age versus chronologic age. I just don't think it's correct because we, you can say, well, my biologic age is, I'm 60, but my chronologic is 50. Well, that needs to be broken down. Is your brain 50 or is it 70? Is your heart 50 or is it 70? How's your liver? How's your pancreas? How's, all these other organs? Because they all, not every organ ages the same. And, the DNA within that organ can be different. There's mosaics they've found within the organs, and then the organs talk to each other. So if you have, we know now that your heart can talk to your brain can talk to your gut, your gut can talk to your heart. So do they tell each other, hey, I'm getting older? Because people say that kind of exists. They kind of do talk to one another. And so I don't think you have one age. I think you have a variety of ages. But he has this like free test out there that allows you to do a variety of different really home-based exams that I know you were going to challenge me or challenge yourself and challenge everybody on it. Tell me about that.
So he does 7 different types of exercises, and that is supposed to kind of give you like to see how well you're aging. So there's just like trying to sit down and then stand up without like touching anything. So, and how many push-ups you can do. It's just, it was I think 7 different exercises.
I saw him do that, and I would have to just say it's helpful if you can do them, but I don't know what the null set is, what the opposite of that is. In other words, I couldn't sit up to a stand when I was 15. I would have been 90. So I should be like right now. It would put me at 150. So I don't think that that's necessarily. Now I don't think he does either. I think that's why he adds 7 of them. Amalgamates them together, and you have one sort of summarized number, which is population studies. It's like putting everything together. You end up with, maybe not the answers that you're looking for, but is it better to be flexible? Sure. But let's say, you have lost a leg. You're not going to be able to get up without, without touching. Yes. So there's like, there's caveats on so many of them that I don't think they can be. I think if you can do all of them, you probably can get I am better than my stated population ages and feel good about it. How that exactly tells you, if you have a family history of cancer, how that's going for you, I don't know. So it may give you a false sense of security. So I don't love that thing. I think it's a cool thing to get people energized to maybe be a little more physically fit, but I don't love that. I also, have looked at his supplement stack, and I don't want to go through. We don't have the time to go through each one. I don't know how he has the time. I think it's over
100.
100.
Yeah.
And this is a guy that literally will not eat out of a plastic utensil because he's worried about microplastics. Meanwhile, most of his supplements come in capsules. Those capsules are certainly not whole food capsules. They may be made out of gelatin, but still they're going through a plant, and you're doing 20 of them. Like I'm just noticed with my multivitamin that I never had before. I'm like, this is like I'm ingesting something that is unnatural for the natural benefit of stuff. Like we have to I think that he's lost a certain amount of what he's trying to do by going that non-holistic way of trying to be holistic. And so and some of the supplements that he's listed, I am not convinced of. Were there some that you reviewed, or do you know what it was?
I don't think the actual supplement list is really
released.
I think it's just you have kind of ideas of what he's taken, but I don't think it's listed anywhere what exactly he's stacking.
Well, for sure, vitamin D. I'll tell you that much because he looks like he hasn't been kind of out in the sun. Which we know is absolutely necessary, minus the effects of what it does to skin.
Yeah, the reason I think is because of his skin aging. So he was testing his skin age. That was part of that, and I think he's just trying to avoid aging the skin.
Tell me about your thoughts, because you're an expert in hyperbaric oxygen, because I know he enjoys
did do that. Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts on hyperbaric oxygen.
So he did the 60 treatments. So he measured some biomarkers. He also did his kind of skin age. prior to starting hyperbarics, and then did it after 30 treatments, and then did it again after 60 treatments, and it looked like all the biomarkers did improve. So, I mean, I'm a believer in hyperbarics, and I think that it does help. So.
Well, on the hyperbaric side, he measured telomeres, right?
He measured his telomere length. He did VEGF. He did, a bunch of different biomarkers, and they all showed improvement. But there was that Israeli study that also checked telomere length, and they showed that the telomeres actually lengthened after 60 treatments.
Remind people what telomeres are.
So those are the little end caps on the chromosomes, and so as those telomeres get shorter and shorter, then that's how they think that you're going to age quicker.
Right. And maybe a correlation to senescent cells, that, these aging cells, though cells that, are being studied deeply now to sort of counter aging, thought to be.
Because they cause kind of like inflammation in their own, like, the way that they're just living. So if you can get rid of the senescent cells, then you kind of decrease your inflammation. And then as you decrease inflammation, everything else gets better.
Which is why we call it inflammaging, which inflammaging seems to be one of the keys. Why, as a cardiologist, we routinely check a CRP as one of our inflammatory markers. And it is absolutely as important as anything else to, eat a diet that's anti-inflammatory, to live a lifestyle that's anti-inflammatory. But in the end, to check your levels and then treat it if possible, sometimes with anti-inflammatories, although inflammation needs to be there to a degree, and you need to do that with a functional medicine specialist, consultation with your cardiovascular doctor, because these all sort of, there's a yin and a yang to everything that we do. But he does this, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which I think has also got a lot of benefit. I'm a scuba diver, so I can tell you I always felt great underwater, right? Under
the pressure.
So you get up and you feel differently. The problem is it's expensive. The problem is it's time consuming. The problem is logistically, geographically, it can be a challenge. So it's not really that easy for all of us. We have a friend in common that liked it so much he bought his own hyperbaric oxygen chamber company, I guess.
His own center. Yes.
Own center, and does it routinely. And we know people that do it to enhance some of the other things that they're doing. For instance, wound care. But it just doesn't strike me as, from Bryan Johnson's perspective, I don't think that's going to make him live longer. And I don't love that you end up doing all these things that are very important for people, but you do something that's so extreme. It's not really, he keeps saying, like, I'm doing this for everybody else. I'm the world's most studied human.
Yeah.
But if you're doing something sort of extreme like that, that may skew everything and make everything else be worthless, because you're basically saying, well, maybe it's hyperbaric oxygen, and now we all gotta live in a submarine. Which is not. What are you doing there? So if I were him, I would try and stay to things that are adaptable to larger populations. So it's not all about you. It is about trying to, become as healthy as a human can be, but it has to be things that are approachable. I don't mean free, and I don't mean just cheap even. I mean just approachable. Like hyperbaric oxygen is for a unique subset. But if all you're doing, if you're doing all these other things, how are you ever going to know which is helpful? So that's why I think, like, he does himself a disservice by adding too many things. It seems, I don't know, maybe he stopped it. I know he also does. We talked about dry sauna, but I think it also does like infrared light, which, what do you think about infrared light therapy?
I mean, I have it along with the hyperbaric. So like a lot of my patients will do the hyperbaric oxygen and then go to the red light therapy. It does stimulate the mitochondria. So if the mitochondria are healthier and producing ATP, then it helps you kind of really, whatever's aching you or ailing you
can help you with
can
some
help you with that.
recovery. Look, I've seen I went down this pathway when I was, kind of buying my dry sauna, and there was this option to buy an infrared sauna that also had red light there because they're different. The infrared, I think 680 is the...
So 680 is like the red, and then as you get up into the 700s, 800s, then you're in the infrared light.
So
wavelength.
This idea was I'm sitting in this warehouse and sitting down, and the owner says, well, you can try this. So I did. I walked in there, and it was like making me warm from the inside because that was the infrared nanometers that were basically semi-microwaving you or whatever. It's not a microwave.
No.
You're getting heat.
It's penetrating.
You're getting penetrating heat, penetrating waves. And then, of course, there was a red light thing in there. So if you got close, I heard it was about 6 inches away to your skin. It is shown to be beneficial on the dermatology side. So dermatologists have advocated for some skin health related things. But it's not like something trying to be anti-cancer. Maybe it helps a little bit with wrinkles for a period of time. But again, you got to be very close to it. You have to have repetitive treatments.
It has to be, yes, that's the thing, is that it's not not every once in a while. It has to be a daily thing.
So I walked away from that. I said, you know what? I'm going to do just
regular
thermal heat sauna with stones that emit heat, that go to a high heat, that increase my heart rate because I'm hot and sweaty, and that decrease my blood pressure because I'm kind of hot and sweaty. And that's what the Finns were doing. Yeah. This other thing, this infrared, which is at a lower heat, and then that somehow sending something that has got a deeper penetration, I felt, well, could that turn something else on I don't want to be turned on?
Well, that's the other problem, because if you're stimulating mitochondria, then you have mitochondria everywhere. So, yeah.
By the way, I was talking about cancer, not when you're talking about a sauna, not turning anything else on. Just to be clear, this is a PG episode. I think that my feeling is that the traditional sauna is the way to go. And I think that Bryan Johnson's perspective on that, he's the first to say that he's experimenting on himself.
Yes.
And he's the first to say that he's studying his experiments. So I like that part of it. I just wish that as such a incredibly interesting specimen, he would stay with things that can be population expanded. And I also wished that he wouldn't sell any of the stuff. I saw a lot of commercialism starting to come out of there.
And they have the Don't Die conferences.
There's a lot of don't die economy.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I heard the guy made a ton of money, and I would have taken it even more seriously from a non-doctor as he is perspective if it was all being done for humanity and charity. Not that I'm a communist or I don't believe in capitalism, but I think in that scenario, he's got a great pulpit, and he could probably make a ton of money on a YouTube podcast. Like, what exactly does he need? What's he doing with that extra money? Anyways, like he's I think he's made was it like it's a fintech thing or something that he made a lot of money
on. I forgot the name of the company, but he sold, it was Venmo. So he made a bunch of money. Great. Like, now you're out there and you're loosening, you're weakening, you're sort of giving up your moral authority by starting to get into the salesman-y part of it, which maybe is a natural thing for him. I don't hold it against him. The data now is a little less pure as this kind of like there's some scientific friends of mine that are really into what's called the digital twin, which talk about a pure data bit of information. So they think that we can really get to a point where we make a digital twin of ourselves. So all of our DNA, all of our mutational omics, as Eric Topol likes to talk about, the omics, the genetic, epigenetic markers that we have within our body could be a twin version of ourselves, and therefore we could test how medications, how cancer treatments work on us. That's kind of what he's doing. He's not doing it as a twin, he's doing it on himself, but getting that kind of level of information is right at our doorstep given AI.
And guys like Eric Topol have mentioned it, and others. And so I'm excited to see what that'll do. It's why I did my whole body. I had a conversation today about the whole body MRI question, which comes up a lot. Very controversial.
Yes.
Because people say, well, you find incidental findings, what do you do? And, but I liked it because it's kind of, I want to say it's not developing my own personal digital twin, but it's giving myself a baseline that has that could have an impact in the future in case there was something I was concerned about and I could see a change.
Something to look at, to look back at. Yeah.
When an interesting biologic versus chronologic thing, like, okay, you've aged, do it in 5 years. Are you aging at the right rate, or is there some, multi-tissue problem that now you can see, So that's, I think, a really... the reason I did it, and let me tell you, I was claustrophobic as hell during it, so I had to get through that to do, because I did a whole body with the brain, took over an hour in a tube.
Yeah, but MRIs are not fun.
But I got it done, and I do recommend it on certain occasions when they're under your care and a longevity kind of perspective, and you feel that would be the test that they would benefit from. So, So what else about Bryan Johnson did you want to talk about, or do you think we covered most of his sort of myths and facts?
Yes, I think we covered a lot of what he's been doing. Yeah.
I think there are people that probably would really want us to expose him, and people that would really want us to say how great he is. And I think that at the Doctor's Lounge, we don't do that. Yeah, we're like, there are things that we can, root for him, and there are things that we want to say, people beware of. Like, I will tell you for sure, if you're on, 100 supplements, we need to sit and have a talk. Yeah, that's
because, when are you eating?
Right. And I would change his perspective from don't die to, slow down aging a little bit. Give it all a little bit of a pause it a little bit, rather than don't die, because this idea of eternity is contrary to, so much. Yeah. Not to mention, we really want the next generations to do well, and to learn how to give them extra information is probably more important than making any individual, don't die. But otherwise, I think it's a great thing we can review periodically, because he comes out with new things, and he is on a cutting edge, and he's dynamic, and he's interesting. Yes. And I want to maybe one day get him on on the other seat on a podcast.
Oh, that would be amazing.
That would be great to really talk to someone who's dedicated his life to testing himself. Yes. And I would very much enjoy that. I don't have to, after the negative things or the controversial things that we brought up, if he would want to do it. But I actually saw him very much sit in a room and take criticism. He's down for some criticism. But I think between my 35 years as a traditional triple board certified cardiologist, your multiple board certifications in functional medicine, family practice, wound care, all the things that you've done, it'd be great to sit and talk with him, and see how his listeners and our listeners kind of critique what we're saying and what he's saying. So maybe that would be something in the future. We'll see if we can maybe get this over to him. But I think we've done a lot in our hour today. If there's nothing more, then I think we'll leave it for next week, where we'll have another fun episode of the Doctor's Lounge at the Soffer Longevity Podcast. So thank you to my favorite and personal physician, Dr. McLeod, for your insight and co-hosting us today again. And look forward to next week.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you.